what we're talking about here is the brief, so the initial brief. And the first thing we're talking about here is drawing list. Everybody keeps asking me about this. This is just a way of setting what you have to do. So it doesn't have to be anything specifically great. It just has to be, if somebody, we've given you kind of a deliverable set here, so you have to figure out what that is. For example, if we say site plan, that's fairly self-explanatory. But if we say furnished concept plans, well, you have to figure out what that means. Does it mean just the floor plans? Does it mean the floor plans of the roof? Does it mean the foundations and all that kind of stuff? Usually it means everything. But again, since we're at concept stage, all the drawings that we're making here are just for the client. So you're making product drawings, and that's the way to think about it, is that you're effectively just making an advertisement for your services. You're saying, this is the product we're going to have. We don't really know how we're going to make it, but it's more or less like this. And so everything you do is based on what you think the audience needs to understand. So it might actually, in this case, be slightly different to the concept drawings that you make in the first semester, which is just for an uneducated client. Because the average family who's building a house doesn't really have much knowledge about it. They just want to know what their lifestyle is going to be. But if you have a professional developer, he might have a specific system in mind that he wants to use to build a house. He's an educated client, so you might have a slightly different approach. But at least at the first stage, you still produce these drawings with black walls, and you're talking about the spaces overall as the main thing. But the most important thing in the drawing list is the site plan, because that's how you locate everything. Everything just goes in this very simple structure. BPS level 1, where is the building in the overall area? BPS level 2, we don't worry about for this, but BPS level 3 is then where is everything within the building itself. So it's just these two levels of locations for finding stuff in the building itself, okay? So for a concept stage plan, we haven't got a site plan here, but it's in the other folder. But the most important thing, what I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to talk so much about the Revit stuff, but more about the graphics as to how it should be set up. So we've got furnished concept plans, cross-section drawings, colored, shadowed, and annotated elevations, okay? So you have to kind of come up with an idea as to what all that stuff looks like for you. And the first thing to think about is that we're designing a row house. So how does the client know that this is a row house, for example? Yeah. I mean, he doesn't. So if I just take this little markup tool here. If I say, okay, I wanted to make this row house. First of all, down here, this all obviously has to be filled in correctly, because that's actually a legal requirement. But this is a row house, so we need grid lines. It's lovely to draw on these things because they're so straight. Grid lines coming down here, if I can draw. But you also need to at least indicate that there's another house coming out on the other side. If not show the entire 6, because you remember what you're giving to the client is 6 houses, so his product is 6 houses. So if you say, okay, this is the floor plan, and you only show 1 house, then first of all I would show it in much higher detail. So I would show it at least 1 to 50, and I would call it like a typology plan or something like that, because you're showing the internal layout. Absolutely necessary in here is you have some kitchens in here, but you need to have furniture, because you can't really judge how a house is going to be used without furniture. You can't get an idea of the scale of it or anything along those lines. So you need to put furniture in there all over the place. But other than that, your graphics are pretty good. I think the black walls and the is exactly the way we want it, because you don't want to be worrying about the client specifically talking too much about the construction, unless you want to talk about that, because you want to control the discussion you have with the client. If you start showing bricks at this stage, you'll be amazed, but clients will focus on the weirdest stuff. If you want to talk about a floor plan, and he starts saying, well, why are you building it out of bricks? And you haven't really thought about it. You just threw them in there because it's the easy thing to do. He'll start talking about, well, I don't want that type of brick. And the whole discussion is completely diverted onto something else. So that's why I'm saying make them black, because you need to really control what you're going to talk about in the discussion. Otherwise, he's going to overtake it with something. And you'd be amazed at how weird people are with their priorities. So you can never judge that. So make sure you have the grids, but kind of, God, difficult to write on this. Grids, and that's number one. But don't do them in such. Can you read that? Don't do them in such a way that. I'll tell you what. I'll type this up afterwards. Don't do them in such a way that it's like a technical grid. It might just be like. It might not even have the bubbles on it. It's just to indicate that there's a house here. I would show it also. Let's see if I can concentrate and draw this straight. Let's say we have 6 here. This is more difficult than I was expecting. Anyway, there you go. Let's say you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 houses here. Let's say you have 6 houses here. You have to give it a number. So 1, 2, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you need to tell the client always exactly what he's getting. He needs to know exactly what he's getting all the time. So if down here you say concept stage plan, you need to show him the entire concept stage plan. And if it's ground level, like where's the front door here? Or am I on the right level here? No, I'm on the second floor. So I'm on the second floor here. So let's just get rid of that for the moment. I'll just put that on the desktop for the moment if we need it later. So if we go over to concept stage plan, and let's just zoom in a little bit. Do the same thing again. So what you might do here is same thing again. Make sure that we have indicate the adjacent, whatever else is happening around it. But if this is the entrance, you always show an arrow showing in, so there's no misunderstanding as to how you get into the house. You also show what's happening outside. So you show the pathway, the cycle lane, if there's any trees, whatever. You show kind of the entire entrance sequence into the house, because it's all about placing people so they can visualize where they are at concept stage. You need to show them exactly what's going on. So you show them where the car is going to be parked out there, because they're going to be thinking about that. They're going to be thinking about, well, if I drive home with my shopping, how do I get into the house? You know, maybe it's here, maybe it's at the back or whatever, but you indicate it. So you show car parking space. Car parking. You might do a little bit of work. I know Revit gives you this kind of room legend, entrance room, storage. The graphics are kind of ugly. I don't know what you think about them, but they don't really give you that kind of sense of design. So you can kind of modify this stuff. You can change the shapes of, for example, you can make this a long rectangle. You could change the text type to something that's more, I don't know, it's got more of your own office template about it. So you have to start thinking about that. Your office also has a design style, which is part of how you relate to the client. So I would say many of you are probably not interested, but some of you are interested in the graphics of drawings. And you can actually set up your own template so it looks good, because the Revit template is a little bit American. Nothing against the Americans, but they have a weird aesthetic. And they're it's kind of a little bit crude, but it doesn't necessarily have to be crude. Okay, you can actually make it better. You can also, we can go into that forever. Also, this type of section head. This is a really technical section head, because it's telling you all the details, the number of the drawing, blah 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 blah. At concept stage, it's a little bit more loose. Often you just do like a section that's kind of like this, with a box on both sides. So it's basically what they have here on the end, but on both sides, and you can split it in the middle, okay? And let me just go back to the drawing here. You can actually select, if I go into this drawing here, if this isn't the one that's working, you can select it itself, and you can change the graphics of it already. If I can get this to work. Why doesn't it work? There we go. So you can call both ends, for example. You can say none, which kind of should clean it up a little bit, except it didn't in this case. What is going on with this one? Building section, edit type, call it head, corner radius, section tag. So we should have let's see, they must have a few different graphics in here. Let's see how it looks like. Well, that's kind of that. Section head open, fill narrow, fill horizontal. So there's a kind of a simpler one. And the other thing we can do is we can actually select it and break it in the middle like that. So you actually have two section diagrams at least, that you can kind of more graphically control within the drawing itself. Let's get it over here. So you see what I mean? It's less technical. It's still, can you even see it on the board there? Not really, but there. If I roll it over, you can see the line. But it's kind of, it's still a section. It still tells you where it is, but it doesn't have that kind of complete technical drawing aspect to it, because you're still trying to sell it in a very soft way. So that's one of the things you can do with that. The other thing we can really get into, if I just zoom in a little bit here, is stuff like line types. For example, if I go to this door here, at the moment it's actually nicely set up. It's a standard door. If I click on it here, it's a M single flush. It's a kind of a standard door from Autodesk. There's obviously an issue with my, it doesn't allow you to do that, okay. But you can actually control, what a lot of students have trouble with is actually controlling the line thicknesses of everything that happens within their plans. So the way to deal with all that stuff is these two buttons over here, okay? So if I press this button here, down the bottom here, we have a button called Object Styles. And in here, there is all the line types set up for everything within the project. So you can actually modify all the doors, all the walls, everything at the same time. So it's under Object Styles. And I'll show you what I mean first of all. So let's just cancel that. Under Manage here, and additional settings, there's a thing called line weights. And line weights brings us into how to control how your drawings are going to print at a later stage. So you can see that there's actually a setting for each different scale in here. So you can actually change how everything displays depending on scale. And these are old style pen settings. When I started working first, we were doing everything with ink pens. We used to have a 0.18, a 0.25, and a 0.35, and a 0.5. We had 4 pens. We rarely used the 0.5. We used the 0.35 to go around the outside of all the walls. And we used the 0.18 for everything that was going to be thin. And then later on, there was actually a little advance in pen technology, and we used to get a 0.1, which is what they use over here. So we used a 0.1 for everything that was thin. So that's back when it used to be fun to do drawings, but anyway. But you can actually come in here and modify it. So for example, you can see here that this is the thinnest line at the moment. So it's probably a 0.18. So I could come in here, this drawing is at 1 to 100. I can come, oh, it's at 0.1 actually, so let's go in here, just press OK. I'm going to change this to, cancel that. I'm going to change this to 1 is to 20, let's say. Do them all. Whoops. I need to go back out to the actual concept stage, level floor, first floor. First floor is your ground floor, is it? Or first floor copy? So now it's at 1 to 20, and if I zoom in, can you see the difference? Yeah, there's a difference here. You can't see it on the board there. Okay, so this is like a kind of a fairly thick line, and this is a thin line, and we're at 1 to 20. So if I go into Object Styles, so I go over to Visibility Graphics, down to Object Styles, and I go to Doors. You can see Doors has all these options in here. So it's got frame, mullion, glass, hidden lines. It's got a lot of stuff in here. So we can see here plan, swing, has a specific line weight, a specific color, and a specific line type. So I could come in here and say, well, actually, I want to make all my door swings to be dash lines like that. And if I apply that, you can see I've just changed the line type within all the door swings in the entire project to these dashed lines, okay? Similarly, I can say I want the panel to be, I don't want it to be 2, I want it to be 3, because that was 0.35 in the pen settings. If I apply that, the panel here suddenly gets thicker. Let's just make that a little bit more obvious here. So if I say panel, I'm going to turn it up to 5, let's say. I think 5 is pretty thick. So you can see, so you can completely modify how all the pen settings go based on this object settings thing. So it's something where people get a little bit confused and they can't control what their drawings look like. If I go in here now, for example, and have a look at, whoops, you can see that it's actually, okay, maybe that's a little bit too little detail. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go into the sample project here, just because there's a little bit more detail in it, because it's an interesting and useful thing to have. So this is just the sample project in AutoCAD, or in Revit. God, that was a flashback. So if I zoom in here, you can see that here it's a little bit more complex. There's all these layers in the wall. Okay, so here we're at 1 to 100. Let's turn it to 1 to 50, which is a more useful scale. So this 1 to 50 might be a standard construction plan, but let's just talk about the graphics of that. If I go up to Manage again and check how they have the pen settings set up, go up to additional settings, line weights, it's still set to the same, so it's 0.18, 0.18, 0.18, but I've decided that for this project I want to have a really fine quality, so I'm going to change all this to 0.1, 0.1, and 0.1, apply. And you can see that it's made it slightly thinner, so there's a little bit higher quality in there. So I've made the smallest pen to 0.1, and the outside of the wall is still a thick line. So let's go into the wall settings and see how that works. So I go into Visibility Graphics, press Edit, down to Object Styles, go down to Walls, and this has got 3 options in here. Well, it actually has 4, because it has an overall option as well. So the overall option for walls is this. So this is the line around the outside of the entire wall. Okay. So at the moment it's set to 3, which is 0.35. Let me just change that to show you the difference it will make. So I'll change it to 5, for example, and apply it. You can see you can modify how that is set up. So let's just change that back again, because that looks stupid. Change that back. Apply. But we can also, it has an option here called Common Edges. So we can also modify the common edges. So for example, let's say you wanted the outside of the wall to really pop out of the sheet, but you don't really want to think about the internal layers so much anymore. We could do some things. We can change the black, for example, to like a lighter kind of gray color, and apply that. And the nice thing about it is that it does it globally across all the drawings. So you can see that it's actually got a much finer, well, you can't really see it on that crappy projector, but it's got a much finer graphical quality, which can help you in your design work. Because the clearer your graphics are, the easier it is to explain the design. And it's something that people don't get into in too much detail, I've noticed, because you spend too much time making models. But it's important to note that the model is only the starting point. The drawing is the final product. So it's how you make your drawings that's important. Just while we're still on line types, there's one last thing we can do in here. Let's say you've set up all your stuff and you're happy with the line types for everything. But let's say, for example, that you want to change the line type of this specific frame here, but not all other frames. You can do that very simply. There's a button under Modify, and there's a button here just called Line Work. So if I select Line Work here, you can actually choose the type of line. So let's say we want to make a thin line. for this frame, you can just go and individually select the lines and modify how they're drawn as well. I'm just clicking. There's a couple lines on top of each other. So you can go in and individually change lines within your project on a specific area if that makes sense to you as well. Okay, so it's important to know that you can have control of all this stuff, because sometimes you can do a hell of a lot of work on a model, but the drawing just ends up looking terrible because the line work hasn't really been considered or thought about. So that's something about that. Okay, any questions about that so far? Resume this. What I would do with this is I would at least show the adjacent houses on all levels. So this should, if you're saying this is the concept stage plan of the project, you have to show everything in the project. Unless the easy thing to do here would be to change the title and make it bigger and just say typology plan, first floor, something like that. And then then the client knows you're talking just about the furniture layouts, the windows, all that kind of stuff. But I would make it bigger at that stage. I would make it 1 to 50 so you could really get into detail about that. But other than that, show the entire thing. The other thing you can do even at this level is, if we go into level 2 here, or level 2 copy, that's the one you've got the graphics on, isn't it? Well, okay, you've got the actual the floor area on it, but this below, this is the level below, is it?
No, that's the top level.
So you've got some kind of underlay in there, yeah. Because you shouldn't really show an underlay in the.
No, that's the first floor. Sorry.
It's the first floor, is it?
Yeah.
So where's the underlay? Underlay, there it is. So I would switch off the underlays always within the project. But the other thing you can do at this stage is always think about levels, because the other thing professional clients want to have, they want to know the floor area, obviously, and they might want to have. I know I always say in concept stage don't put in dimensions, but for a professional client they might want to know a dimension, especially if they're used to building stuff. They'll just look at you as if you're an idiot if you don't give them a dimension. So maybe for professional clients you put in a dimension, length and width. But the other thing you can put in here very simply is to use the annotate command and to put in a spot elevation. And we want to make it this doesn't work correctly on this button, but anyway, we want to make it a crosshair project elevation. And that, you can see as I roll it over, it's actually telling us what level the floor is at here. So it's at 3.5 meters. So we can just click on that. And now we have a dimension saying what it is. Now I think I'll just change that type of elevation to, or that type of graphic to something else. So you can play with the graphics of this as to what you want to do, but you should have some kind of what's it going to allow us to do here? I don't want a leader. You should have some kind of notation showing that this is the level of what it's at. If I do another one here, spot elevation, and I put it over here, that's the same. But to me that looks like, because they're different colors, it looks like this is possibly a void, so there's possibly nothing happening in there. So from that point of view, I would like to know that these two things are on the same level, okay? So that's one thing. The other thing is when we get into the sectional side of stuff, and let's just go straight out and go back into the actual drawing itself. These kind of levels, they're a bit overkill for concept stage. So you can do, you can either just switch off the actual head itself like that, but keep the actual lines in there so people can actually orient themselves. And this is just purely a graphical thing, but you can put in another spot elevation. This time we'll use a beam elevation, I think is the best one. So anywhere where there's a level, you can put in an elevation. So straight away we know exactly what's happening at each level. And this is where you see that the line showing the ground would be useful, because if we think about last semester and we think about wheelchairs, you know, you've already got an issue here, for example. So something like that would be completely clear straight away as soon as you put these elevations in here. The other thing I would put in here is either use text, which you can just say text, and say, you know, kitchen. Whoops. Or something. You know, you need to be able to orient yourself all the time in, I usually put it on the floor here, where you are in the building itself all the time. You can also play with the text. If I select the text here, you can see there's other stuff that you can add to it. So I can edit the type, for example, and I can make it so that the background is transparent. You know, so now it's not in front of the of everything else. So let's just move it somewhere where you can see it. Because sometimes those opaque backgrounds which block out everything behind are useful, but often they also look a little bit unaesthetic, you know. And also I would change the text. This standard text is Arial text. It's kind of, yeah, it's got no, you know, it's got no branding to it. Is what I'm trying to say. You need to think that every drawing you produce from your office is also a type of branding. So your style, your graphical style, is quite important because it adds to the professionalism of your output. Okay, but other than that, I mean, that's a fine concept stage drawing. What I like about this is that we can see that there's going to be an issue here. I mean, you've got a balcony, which is essentially a flat roof on top of a kitchen. It looks like it's about 200 millimeters thick, no insulation in it. So straight away, the technical issues are becoming really, really clear. So then the issue becomes, well, how do I get from inside the house to outside the house when we have to add about 400 millimeters of insulation in there at some stage? Do I move the roof down? Do I move the terrace up? How am I going to do it? You know, all those decisions you have to make at an early stage before you start thinking about materials and so on. So that's why these things are really nice. So that brings me on to the next thing you should be doing at this stage, is because I said drawing list at the beginning of the deliverables. It's like the drawing list is just to set up what you think you need to do. So now that we've done the section here, we can see that, okay, let's just do this really smart little thing here. Now we can say that, okay, well, there's going to be a problem here. And there's going to be a problem over this entire area here because according to the design, there's no way of insulating it without making the entire thing, 600 millimeters deep. There's probably going to be a problem here because how do you stop water coming into the house here? If this is all one concrete slab like it looks like here, how do you stop cold bridges coming straight into the house and so on? So that's going to be an issue. That's going to be an issue. And underneath the kitchen here, that's all going to be an issue. And then you probably have a structural issue here because how are you going to hold up this thing? And so on and so on and so on and so on. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually saying, well, these are callouts. So if we go back in to the drawing, so this is where we just go and we make some callouts. So make a callout here. And we can immediately start to say, well, this is going to be a detail. And then another one. This is going to be a detail. And that's probably going to be more or less the same. This is going to be a detail. And I would say this is also going to be a detail. And so on and so on. And always there's a detail where it meets outside. And then, of course, there's going to be a detail wherever you get into the house. I can't remember where it is, but there's probably could be something like that. So now we've just set up a whole load of more drawings over here. But the nice thing about this is now you know what you have to do. So you've actually set up all your project work for the next 4 months by knowing that you need to work out all these elements. Okay? Yeah, so miss the ground lines there. So definitely ground lines and level. All the levels here, they have to go in. All the callouts. How the landscape works outside here. Where's the car? If there is a car parking here, or if it's a tree, or what? Because you're going to have to think about how that's going to be built as well. You can't just plant a tree anywhere. You also have to design what it's going to be planted in, and how that's going to be drained, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And the same thing on the other side. If this is a courtyard, what's happening between the house and the courtyard? Is there a step? You know, what's the treatment of the surface here? How's that going to work as well? So that's what I'm saying, is that the building doesn't stop here. It stops maybe out here somewhere. You know, it goes beyond the level of the whole thing. But other than that, it's a nice drawing. What else we got here? Elevations. See, what we got here, this is kind of a classic mistake, is you've given me an elevation that you would never see in reality, because it's a terrace of houses. So, well, unless you're giving me an elevation at the end of the terrace, which is possible, I suppose. But is that what you're giving me? Well, I don't know. So always think that when you're showing an elevation, you're showing the reality of what you would see when you were there, except orthogonally projected. Okay. So if this is an elevation, is it an east elevation first of all? Yeah, I know. See, this is what I'm saying. I know it's still a work in progress, but make sure that this is correct. Is it southeast? Is it northeast? Is it, you know, all that kind of stuff? Is it an actual elevation, or can you have an elevation there? And where is the elevation? Like, for example, I don't know what your terrace looks like, but if it's 3 houses like this, and then 3 houses like this, for example, and you have an apartment block here, and an apartment block here, what you have here is you got one elevation, which is this entire piece. You got another elevation here, another elevation here, one here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 elevations. But they're very specific. Like, you couldn't say this is an east elevation. You'd have to say elevation 1, for example, and you would have to say specifically, you know, elevation 1, elevation 2, because they're not necessarily related to the compass. You know what I mean? I know Revit automatically goes north, south, east, west, but that's just the starting point. You have to be a little bit more accurate than that. So as I'm drawing this, let me just get rid of that actually, because it is a good idea whenever you do this stuff whenever you show an elevation, to actually have a little key plan, and it should always be the same place on all your drawings. So maybe you put it down here, for example. You have a little key plan here. It shows your entire scheme. It's got your 6 houses in here. And from this, you can say, well, this is elevation 0, 1. And down here, you've got a little arrow going elevation 0, 1. So you can't make a mistake. You know what I mean? It's exactly where you want it to be. If you set up your sheets with that key plan on it, then you don't have to worry about it from then on. So you can actually change your title block so it has that key plan on it, which is the easy way to do it. You know, and it doesn't have to be a view from Revit. You can actually clip an image from Revit and then just put it into the title block as an image. You don't have to be, you know, too crazy about the whole thing, because it never gets printed out to the level of quality you would notice that kind of stuff. But anyway, if we say that this is a real elevation, you still need to have the levels in here, blah 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 blah, and you need to kind of have the highest level, because there is a difference here. So there's the highest level, and then there's the level here as well. So those are 2 different levels, and then we have a level down here, and we have a level over here. And we want to have not so much the levels between the floors for the elevation, but definitely the level from natural ground level to the highest level of the house, because that's what the local authorities are going to be looking for. So that's what you want to have it in those cases here. Also, concept stage, you can think about shadows, you can think about colors and all that kind of stuff. But there's a nice part in, if for example we went into, let's go into an elevation here, elevation north. Let's say we turned on the shade in here. Let's turn on the shading view. That's like a house coloring by the guys who made the Yellow Submarine cartoon, if everybody remembers that. It's full on, you know what I mean? So you need to think to yourself, is this what I want? Is this also the graphical style that I want in my office? Shadows. If you switch on the shadows straight away, we know a lot more about the building, what it looks like. But we can also modify the graphic display over here. And since we're talking about concept stage, I would turn on the smooth lines. I would turn on silhouettes, and silhouettes just makes the drawings pop out like that. So all the levels that are different kind of pop a little bit. you could think about doing the ambient shadows, so it has a little bit more quality to the shadowing. Photographic exposure. Well, let's just think about lighting first of all. Turn the shadows down a bit so they're not so dominant. And you can think about turning the ambient light up, changing the colors a little bit in that kind of a way. That's a little bit crazy. I probably wouldn't have blue glass in there. Is that the material? How the material is represented? Unless you're going to Photoshop it afterwards, of course. Press OK. We could also just go full on and turn on the realistic rendering. But in that case, I would really think about, you know, how you want the wood to display. No, we don't want that. We want. Okay, it's only. Let's just do that on the rendering or what? Graphic exposure. Oh yeah, color correction. This is the one I was looking for. Saturation is your friend. So saturation is how colorful your colors are going to be. So if I turn it up here, for example, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference because it's already pretty intense. But if I turn it down a bit, hopefully, oh, maybe it doesn't work with this. Maybe it only works with the other one. Let me just see. Oh no, I need to switch it off first of all. Okay, there you go. So color correction, yeah. Okay, that was a little bit too much. So you can just type in here, let's say 70, for example. And you can turn the shadows down a little bit and apply that as well. Okay. Press OK. That didn't do anything. So like I say, this is kind of, it is a trial and error situation straight away, and some of them you have to kind of play with them a little bit. But it's kind of a balance between making it too dull and then trying to make it pop out of the screen a little bit. So you can kind of whoops, that was a little bit too far. But you can see what I mean. You can kind of do a lot of stuff with this until you get something that's that looks good. The other thing is, if you're doing an elevation like this, you can put a background in. Straight away, they have a sky here you can put in, so I can just put a sky in there if you want. That's a dark sky. We can put in a gradient, which is kind of nice as well. So all this stuff kind of allows you for the image to pop out of the. It looks terrible. It looks much better on my computer, but you know, you have to think about, you're trying to sell this stuff. So you know, make sure there's 6 of these houses. Make sure they pop out of the page, and don't let the text dominate for the at least for the concept stage. Okay. I think I'll leave it at that because we're finished anyway.